What would you suggest to someone who's being told they aren't of their race? What would your response have changed? Okay, I think I've kind of covered that. I think self love is enormously important, self acceptance, and knowing who you are. And the more that you can know about yourself, your background, your context, and place in history, the better you will be. Okay, why exactly do you think there was so little information on John Byrd Wilkins? All right, was it because of his race, because of the time period, because of the way he changed his story? I would say, great question, by the way, all of the above. He did not want to be found. He was quite a tricky character. He had a lot going on, and he had many balls that he was juggling. Today, in our world of Google and being able to Google people and track people on the internet and all that, he would have never been able to get away with the various things that he did at the time. But that was part of it was, as I said, he did not want to be found. Second thing is that census records are very sketchy where black people are concerned once you get to prior the 1870 census. Slaves were not kept track. Nobody cared about their names. If you read the slave census, it's pretty disheartening. You see that they were listed right along with the mules, the cattle, the pieces of furniture. Slaves were not really considered people. So no one kept good records. And so that part of African American genealogy research is very difficult. Also, yeah, I just think also that it was his nature to be tricky, changing his name all the time, all the different wives, moving around. He was quite a character, a unique. Okay, how did race affect your search for your family's past? Okay, I think I've gone over that a little bit in some of my other questions, meaning that that incident where my race was called into question at the beginning of the book really was, I would say, an inciting incident that inspired me to go and research. What do you think was the most significant part of your grandfather's life that made him who he was? And I would say it's a tricky question, but I would answer it in two parts. I think in one side, he, that whole thing of his father leaving and of having a secret, if you will, about his father, because he knew his father, he knew about the bigamy, I think he knew about all that, and having that as a anti-role model almost, like I never want to do this, I never want to be this, I never want to have anything to do with it. I think that that had a powerful effect on making him this incredibly driven, super hard-working person that he was. The second thing that I would say was also an important role model was the fact that when he was at Lincoln Institute, he had a very supportive and warm community of people who supported him, who saw his brilliance, because the man was a genius, okay? People saw his brilliance, they nurtured him, and he was really supported to feel good about himself and to feel that despite these problems, he was someone who could do what he wanted to do in life. And those two, I think, counterbalancing things had an enormous impact. Okay, let me go to my next question here. When you were young, how many times a month, day, year, etc., would you experience racial remarks? When I was young, particularly in the 60s, and I'm sure Philip can corroborate this, it was pretty much a part of a part of daily life because, first of all, race was in your face. It was in your face constantly. It was in your face from white people telling you what you couldn't do, couldn't be, couldn't go. It was in your face from black people saying, we're rising up, we're doing this, you need to join us with this. Race was an enormous factor in my life. I can't even count the number of times. How did it feel to be involved with the African culture group, and did you have any other strange encounters? You must be asking about my spiritual adventures. It was very interesting. I would say on that, I'm in the process of working on another book that's going to go a little deeper into the whole spiritual thing in terms of African religion, race, religion, and culture. That book is coming, so I'm going to tease you a little bit and withhold any further discussion on that point. Stay tuned. Let's see here. How has your viewpoint on race been changed or remained the same? My viewpoint on race did not change, but I will say I felt far more secure in myself and secure in who I was as a result of having done this exploration into my family's history. It gave me a lot more confidence. And as I mentioned before in my point on self-love, once you have confidence, I think it's a very useful tool to battle any kind of obstacle that you have because you know who you are and where you come from. Okay, let's see. How do you feel that your grandfather helped pave the way for other African Americans? Well, I'm enormously proud of this because, in fact, he did. There's no question. He was the highest ranking African American in the U.S. government in 1956 when he got the job, or 1954, I'm sorry. So just the fact that he was there and it was widely publicized in the black press that he was there, it gave people something to shoot for. They could look and see, wow, well, a black person can do this. Oh, this is possible. And in that way, he paved the way for the white people who worked with him in the government. Maybe they had never met a black person that they had to work with on the peer level. And that is also an important lifting up and an education factor. He was a trailblazer, no doubt about it. Okay, did you ever want to give up? Or did you always have the ridiculous hunger for the truth? Of course I wanted to give up. Research is hard. Writing is hard. Anybody who tells you it isn't is lying. It's really hard. I worked on the book for probably, I want to say 3, maybe 4 years. Hard and heavy. And yes, there were times when I had to take a break, when I had to just say, I can't do it anymore. But I was drawn to do it. I felt really compelled to do it. I felt that I had an important story. And I think the most important thing that drives any author, I felt that I had a story that if I did not tell it, would not be told. So, let's see. Did you think I already went through that. How important is it to know your family's roots? I think it's very important. And I mention it in the book. I've talked about it a lot here in this interview. And the questioner goes on to say, is it more important for African Americans? I don't know. I think it's certainly vital for African Americans, particularly because our history has often been suppressed and not taught. And often, if we don't go back and research, we're not going to learn it in school. We're not going to necessarily see it in the movies or whatever. If we don't make the effort to find out, it probably will remain a mystery. And people who do not know their history then are easily led and manipulated to do things by other people who have maybe other agendas. That said, I think it's also important for all people to know their history because it's only through an awareness of history that you can see what the trends are and what the past has taught us that maybe we want to change. If we want to change, we need to know what we did before and not do it again, right? Okay, all right, I'm moving on. I want to try to get this all in 30 minutes, so I'm going to speed up a little bit. Um, there are many references to music. As an artist, does the new wealth of information concerning your family have an impact on the art? The answer is yes. And as a result, I wrote actually pieces for the second book that I wrote after my grandfather. I went back and researched the women in my family, and the pieces that I wrote for that I made into an album. It's called Celebrate the Beautiful. And yes, they were all as a result of having connected with that history and my mother's side of the family, who are musicians. Okay, I'm going faster here. What has changed from the time you were born? Okay, I've already talked about that a little bit in a previous question, so I'm going to leave that. Do you feel you have closure? I would say yes. I would say that's one of the most satisfying things that happened, was that I did get a feeling of, yes, I know. And that was very healing, actually. Did you ever come across a time when the research became too difficult? I already talked on that, and the answer is yes. Did you change your view on anything after your book? No, not really. I think I knew more, and I felt more confident about the views that I had before because now they were backed up by facts. Do you think your book gives white people a taste of what it means to be black in America? I hope so. And I hope, more importantly, that it gives them a taste for this particular social niche, time, and place where I was raised, and the people of my parents' generation, my grandparents' generation. Sometimes their story has been lost in the general narrative about what it means to be black, and a lot of white people are unaware of this, and I think it's important that they know, because the more you know about anything, the more knowledge is power, right? The more you know about people, the better you understand them, and the better you can relate to them. Okay, going on. Next question. Do you still experience the racial tension you experienced? And you asked, this is a variant on a question that I already answered about, are things better now? And I did answer that at some length. The answer is things are better, but we still got a lot to do. Okay. Do you know when and where the pictures on the front cover? Good question. I believe that they were taken in Kansas, and I think it's my great... Oh, no, I'm sorry. You know what? That's the wrong book. Sorry. Cancel. That's my second book. First book. That's the one with my grandfather and his three sons. And the answer is no, not specifically. My guess is it's his office in the Labor Department, but I do not know specifically. Okay. Do you think society's views on African Americans have changed? I already spoke on that, so I'm going to leave that alone. How did it feel among your peers not to fit the, quote, black stereotype? It felt lousy. I tried very hard to kind of erase this part of my history for many years because I was not comfortable with it, because I was shamed on both sides of the fence. The white people didn't understand it, and a lot of black people didn't understand it either. It was very difficult. And one of the best things that happened to me as a result of writing the book is that I was able to be more comfortable with my background, with my history, and to understand where I came from, and therefore be able to be more solid when I'm around people of either race or any race.